This is a show about facing fear, unlocking courage, and taking action.
Courage isn't necessarily a daunting thing.
It's going to give you more purpose. It's going to give you more drive.
It feels like making a courageous decision is going to get you closer to who you aspire to be.
It's knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage.
When we leave our homes, let's say we're just going to the grocery store, we know that's where we're headed. Do we get distracted? Do we go in other directions? Maybe stop and do other things along the way? Yeah, but we still are going to the grocery store. What happens in life, we never make it to the grocery store. And then we wonder why we don't have any food, because you never made it to the destination.
I would say a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to sort of sit back and watch my guest today do him. And it's always fun to play that role, right? You toggle between what life is like up on the stage, but also like trying to don't lose the message, like take in what the speaker is actually saying. And I don't know if you remember, Reggie, this event I'm talking about. It was a Kraft Heinz event. We were in Chicago. Carlos Abrams had just taken over, I think, as CEO.
Oh, yeah.
I think you had challenged everyone in the group. There's like 5 components of what make you you. Do you know what I'm talking about here?
Yeah, I do. Man, it takes me back a ways, but you're right. And I was trying to get people to see, who they are and how they show up day to day. And just through a series of questions. But one of the most interesting things about that time is that anytime people do self-reflection and they take it seriously, sometimes they see themselves in a different light they didn't expect to see, and then they have to do something about it, which is always eye-opening for the individual.
I'm pretty as an observationalist, I'm watching the room respond to you, and people were going to town with their chicken scratch. Like they were taking notes, man. I was very taken back by, here's a group of people that they are on the go always. Maybe everyone is, go, 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 go. And here's this moment to put life on pause, not just your professional life, but your business, your personal life. And I think one of the points you were trying to make on that day was well, if you're over-indexing on one thing, you're probably under-indexing on another. Is it your health that's getting the worst of it? Is it, is it your family? And so it was a really cool session that you had run, and it introduced me to you and your work. Your company is called Performance Paradigm. I believe you're based down in Florida. Yes?
That's right.
Everything okay down there? I'm not sure what part you're in.
It was tricky. We were doing the Hurricane Helene and Milton two-step for a minute there. What became, apparent, as I was going through that phase, while I wound up relatively, unscathed, there are so many people who lost everything. And it's one of those humbling experiences that you just sort of sit in gratitude and understand that, almost everything, almost everything is temporary. Well, let me rephrase that. Everything is temporary. And just to make sure that you're spending your time doing the things you need to do while you're here in this moment. So yeah, the hurricanes, sort of brought me back into a space of don't forget who you are and the work you're supposed to be doing. It matters. So let's not lead with I'm tired. Let's lead with.
Well, it's funny. I've been working on a little. Probably one of the pinch me moment projects of my life. I've been working with Landon Donovan, who's probably the best U.S. soccer player we've produced. There's a joke in there for most U.S. people because they're like, oh, soccer. But Landon, one of the lines that Landon sort of taught me about, it's not his line, but he uses it all the time, is this too shall pass. And, when you talk about temporary, turning that into let's use one of your G's. I'll use grace, right? And we'll get into your G's because I think they are your 4 G's. But this too shall pass. And here we are to start a new year. And I think there's a lot of fear about what's going on in DC or what might go on in the country. And I'm not here to be tone deaf and say this too shall pass right away, right here. But hey, if there's some strife going on in your life, I love where your head was with, this is temporary, this too shall pass. And here we go.
Ryan, there's as I go around and I do this work, whether it's a keynote on the stage like you saw, or with some intact team inside of an organization, one of the things that just keeps showing up is that we have gotten further and further away from doing our part to improve the human condition. Let me just it's way up here for the moment, but and I think about that recentering of humanity is everybody's responsibility because we always have disruptions. We'll always have disruptions. Sometimes it takes a little bit of recentering and refocusing and resetting in order to go. But I am a part of the very human condition that I am either the recipient of the advantages or I am the recipient of the disadvantage. And I have a personal responsibility to be service driven enough, which sometimes takes courage, service driven enough to improve the human condition. And I just believe that wholeheartedly, no matter where I am. I see some of these teams, they get into a room and, it's tense and they can't solve the problem together. And a lot of things are happening. It's what we call competing demands are happening all the time. And once you get them to understand, we are all in this together and we will all get through it together. It's when we separate ourselves and we try to go down one path or the other, it's not as helpful. And so the message I tell everybody is like, work better together. It's a real thing. It's a real thing.
It might be the only thing that isn't temporary. It's like, yeah, it's not temporary. Like we've got to figure out if we want to hold hands here and figure out, does everyone in the room want to be successful? Absolutely. Yeah, we can agree on that, right? Okay. How are we going to go about doing that? And I kind of alluded to your G's. You got these 4 G's that I've seen. I'm not going to steal your thunder, but can you rattle off these G's and how you land it? Because there's so many words. I always obviously you know which word I chose, but I'm curious how you got to these 4 G's.
As like I said, I've been doing this work for a long time. I realized I had my team do some research. So I've been doing this leadership development, human-centered work, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, all those things for 36 years. And I've probably trained over 1.5 million people in my career. And there's just been a through thread is that everybody, no matter who they are, meaning their status in life, title, withhold, whoever, no matter who they are, they all have a story. Like everybody has a story. And what we tend to not do is pay attention to the story enough. We only pay attention to the moment that we're together. And sometimes you have to go, when life sits you down, what makes you keep going? And if I asked that question to 100 people, I would get all these different answers. And what came to me was like, it's probably encapsulated in integration of 4 Gs: growth, grit, gratitude, and grace. So if you think about those 4 Gs and you think about why people keep going, sometimes the reason they keep going is because they have the grit inside of them for a sustained period of time. And it's what they have learned how to do over time. It's just keep going. I got to get up. It's not up to me to stop. And for other people, it's not grit, sustained effort over the period of time. It's growth. It's like I have a growth mindset. Like I'm a continuous learner. I love to learn. And the reason I keep going is because I'm learning something. And sometimes when you adapt a growth mindset, it will lead you in very different places and spaces. I often talk about, scarcity mindset versus abundance mindset and how people think and how people frame. I still lift both of those up and say, but having a growth mindset, this is the work of, Carol Dweck, is like, that's how you move forward through all sorts of disruption and chaos. And then I talk about, again, life sitting you down. There's growth and there's grit. There's a reason, Ryan, and I'm going to ask you this question. There's a reason sometimes people keep going, and it's because of the gratitude they have for everything I have is because of somebody else. Even though I did the work, but it's because of other people, and I need to show some gratitude. And when you sort of remember this intersectionality, growth, grit, and gratitude, and get grace, the grace for me ends sort of reveals itself in we are our worst critics on ourselves. Man, we can, I don't, because we validate ourselves from the opinion of others, which is an unhealthy frame to do anything. But we rarely show ourselves grace. We rarely give ourselves some slack. We listen to the voices that are outside and think, I don't do enough. I take that grace and I go, the first person you need to give grace to is yourself, because it's the healing properties of that for yourself is how you move forward. But also, because you don't know other people's stories, you're supposed to offer grace to other people. You don't know what they're going through.
Totally. But we think we know, and we think we know, and we make up a story, right, that often serves us. We don't say it that way, but that's what's happening. And it's lots of head nods over here. I've got a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old, and the amount of times I've said to them, when you compare, beware. When you compare, beware, guys. And then I'll go to work and I'll find myself going, wow, I wonder if I would have stayed on the corporate track, would I be a CEO or a president? And then I'll be like, oh, hey, when you compare, beware, right? And to your point, it's that grace. Optimism is my number one value, but I'm still human.
Yeah.
Right? And I'll catch myself being human. And there's another G, that I'd like to spark this next part of the convo, which is, and here we are, January, right? So I will say 4 months ago, companies, maybe 6 months ago, companies started working on goal setting for the year. I think usually what we then do is, as we start to sort of search our teams from the goal set side, we'll look at skill set, right? We're like, all right, we want to pull these 3 things off. Oh, hey, that's perfect for Reggie. He's got the capability to pull that off. And then great, goal set and skill set, but you kind of forgot the mental part. You forgot the mindset. It's like goal set and skill set are great, but what about the mindset? And when I hear your G's, it reminds me of it is a mentality component. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. And even in the circles of psychology and other places, the mental framing that we use to navigate any space in time or environment we're in is what allows us to move from point A to point B to point C to point D. It's how we frame it. I know you've been around people who, something would happen and they seem not to be fazed by it. It's like, it's just stuff happens. And somebody else is like, it's just like, oh my goodness, worst thing ever. That is all mindset. It's all mindset. I didn't make this next part up, but I've also used with a lot of people that I work with. It's like, it's not what happens, it's what happens next. And how you react to what happens and what happens next is in your mind. So you can let go of some things or you can hold on to some things. And the holding on is helpful. And sometimes the letting go is more helpful.
Totally.
It's in your mind. It's nowhere else. And people need strength to do that, to be able to hold on and to let go.
Here's another G, gravity. This is right. Yeah. To your point, this is what is something, gravity, and it's swaying your brain down, it's weighing you down, and the amount of questions you ask yourself. That I don't know if this happens on your side. The argument I get with my wife all the time. It's like she'll be biting her lip on something. I didn't even know I did something wrong. And I'm like, oh, I wish I was a mind reader. If I was a mind reader, I would have known. I wish you would have told me that, and I could have adjusted behavior on my side, right? So there's some component of gravity going on there. As you think about, all these G's are great G's, right? And I think I can't help as an optimist think about I find myself, probably not surprising, growth and gratitude are the two that really land, from a visceral standpoint. I am a glass half full guy. I love the concept of no, let's find the good in this, right? Let's find the positive opportunity. And then the gratitude component, like you said, we're social creatures. I want to be around people. I'm honored by those are the two that really land for me. Do you see blends? I mean, are these blends of these words?
Yeah, and I'll tell you two different examples. So one person, they were leading a team, and the organization had gone through a massive reorg. It's business. Everybody saw it coming, but what the person realized, it's like, you know what? I am experiencing something I've never experienced before. Like I wasn't a part of the reorg, meaning the part that got let go, but I was a part of the reorg for the ones who stayed. So I'm one of the ones who stayed. So I have gratitude that I still have a job. What I also realize is that I am mourning the people who left. And the only way for me to make sense out of this is to adopt a growth mindset that suggests, what am I learning from this? Because there's always a lesson. So look for the lesson, look for the learning from it, and you can move on. And he goes, and I've never put the two things together. It's always like, I'm grateful. I have gratitude. I never have thought about have growth and gratitude at the same time. So they sort of do happen in service of one another. And so the other story, which is super interesting, I had a contractor doing some work at the house, and it was one of the days that I was frustrated. And so I just happened to be out there, it's outside, he's doing some stuff outside. And we just started talking because I talk to people. He could sense that I was having an off day because I wasn't actually saying anything. We could just tell I was short or whatever it was. And he just looked at me. He just stopped doing what he's doing. He says, you know what? If you want to have a better day, choose it.
Man.
Okay. And he made me pause. Like I literally paused. I'm outside with a contractor doing some work for me. I'm the one who's temping, like running around the yard and doing stuff. And he just looked at me and says, if you want to have a better day, choose it. Okay.
Yeah.
And he tells me a little story about himself, it was so beautiful. But he goes, everything that we do is a choice. And it's because of stories like that, I see the intersectionality of growth, grit, gratitude, and grace. If you choose one of them, it doesn't mean you're not choosing the other ones because they all support one another. Like you can't have one without the other, but you can certainly focus on one to get you through a moment. And that self-reflection is powerful.
To me, they feel like dials on the amp. Like certain times, some are dialed up more than others, and on other days, right?
Yeah.
You want to go a little bit more of a thump. You're gonna have the thump come out. That's the way it's gonna. And I love that. I can just see you in that role reversal moment.
I know, man. And I went in the house, right? And I went in the house and then started reflecting. It's like, wow, somebody else, and it was so helpful. How do you make it? I'm so curious about you. Like, what do you do to get through these moments in your life where you need to make decisions? Which one of the G's do you think you use the most?
I feel like I personally feel like there's stages for me. Like I feel like grit had a place for me in a last life. And it's not that I'm lazy, right? The grit still shows up, but the energy feels different. Like the grit shows up more in growth, and when I say growth, I don't mean it like growth mode. It's not that type of growth. It's like I really do feel like I'm in constantly seeking growth, and I can see how grit can play in that. But to me, I see more grit connected to the world is as big or small as your largest problem version of grit, right? Where it's like I've got to get through this, and then we'll deal with what's on the other side of this. And I'm grateful I have that muscle. That feels like a different chapter for me personally. I think gratitude is probably a close second silver medal for me. And I think I could probably give you more color there. I kind of feel like grace is probably more in my future. And I think I'm a thoughtful person, but I don't think I've unlocked grace at the level of which you're talking about personally. Do you see that as like almost like chapters in a book?
Yeah, again, it's just framing, right? And I think sometimes people need to have what feels like a direction on a path and say, I have to do the grit part of my life right now. But even though I'll always have gratitude for everything, it's like this is a grit moment for me, and it's like it's a journey on my path, chapter to a book, milestones to reach, like whatever frame we use, it does work that way. What I try to get people to sort of hear and think about, which I'm so glad we're talking about this, is that for you to have a better, I'll use I'll use the term quality of life, meaning it's the life you chose, you have to create what feels like a blueprint for what to do next. Because because if I back up to everything's temporary, you don't actually know what's going to happen next. And it's a whole lot easier to get back on track if you have a plan. Being hopeful is not a plan. Wishing is not a plan. One day, not a plan. People need a plan. So I offer like the 4G blueprints, like put them in an order that works for you so that you can then navigate your next, whatever that is. Doesn't matter what it is. I don't want you to be judged by maybe I chose the wrong next thing to do. That's not helpful. Like, what do you need that's going to help you get there? That's why I use it in a frame like that. So it sort of stitches things together.
Hopefulness is like, you pull the string. We've heard hope is not a strategy. Hope is not a strategy. I don't know. I keep coming back to this. I worry about people right now with hope. And again, I'm an optimist, right? So like I still have a lot of hope. I gotta be real careful that this podcast doesn't spiral right about now, right? But maybe I'll keep it surface level. Like I do think the reinstall of hope puts you on a path, a strategic path. It might not be a strategy, but if I don't believe something is attainable, like one of the things I love about my messy experiment called Courageous is that I like how elastic the idea can be. Sometimes I keep coming back, Reggie, you're like the perfect person to run this by because you've been doing this for 35, 36 years. Like I keep coming back to a train right now for some reason. And like, I think every CEO wishes it was an express train. It's like, no, sorry. This is a local, like first stop is what's the courageous conversation we're afraid to have? Open the doors. Who's coming in? Who's getting off? Next stop. What's a courageous decision we're not making? Open the doors, close the doors. All right, let's talk about courageous ideas. Is this a courageous idea? Open the doors, close the door. I mean, the train stops enough time, it gets to courageous change. It gets to courageous transformation, which I think, I think that's where our worlds align. It's like, hey, performance. Like, are we really delivering? Are we really getting where we said we would go? So, but I think if I don't believe, if there's no hope, the train doesn't move. It's never on the trails. There's no tracks. And so I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's like, where does that fall into the G's? Is it like,
so I was thinking about, as I, knew I was going to talk to you, and that I use courage in a sort of a construct that helps people see things a little bit differently. And the 4G sits adjacent to it. But whenever so let's say somebody's making a life transition, I want to go from this kind of job to this kind of job, and it's a transition. I have to relocate. It's point A to point B, and it's a transition involved. Sometimes what I ask them to think about is when they finally get there, wherever there is, are you ready?
yeah,
And a lot of people never think about being ready when they get there. They just trying to figure out how to go.
totally.
And the courage part comes in for me. It's like, do you have the courage to stay on the train, stay on the path? And do you have the courage after you're there to take on whatever is there for you to keep going versus get on the train and go back?
Totally.
And because people don't think that far out, they get to these other places like, I want to be an entrepreneur. Like, okay, great. Like, do you have the courage to actually be one? Do you even know what that means? Like, no, all I know is I don't want to work for anybody else. I'm like, oh, okay. That's
Gotta start somewhere. Gotta start somewhere.
okay. All right. At least you have a destination. You have
Right.
no plan.
Right.
You don't even know what path you don't even know what you want to be an entrepreneur about. But good for you for knowing that's the destination. And then I pull on that courage thing. So I help a person understand to be an entrepreneur. This is stuff in business you got to know. This is the data analytics stuff you have to do. And I tell all the things about being an entrepreneur. And they go, oh, I didn't know that. And I don't know if I'm built for that. I don't know if I want to do that. I'm like, that's okay. Because then I tell them it's going to take some courage to hear the amount of no's that's going to come your way as an entrepreneur before you get to the yes that matters. So do you have the courage to have the, stick to itness, and I do that. I'll share one other thing with you. But again, it's about courage. I was inside of internal to an organization, and they were doing a slotting exercise about who moves over into what roles, like that kind of stuff. No, it's normal. I was like, and they says, we don't know how to make decisions about a couple of people who are sitting at the top, not the top of the organization, but the top of a choice. I got to pick between two people. And this is what I told them. I said, so I want you to look at it through this lens. There's a 3 + 1 C. You're like, what?
Yeah.
There's a 3 + 1 C. It's like, what? I said, so you look at the two people and you ask the question, are they capable? That's the first C. It's like, they both seem to be capable, meaning they can actually do the job. They are capable of doing the job. I'm like, great. Look at the second C. Are they competent? And they went, let me think about that for a second. So they looked at them and they, these were all internal, promotions. They said, yeah, both of them are really, they're pretty competent. So they're capable and competent. So move that out of your conversation. Now let's go to the third C + 1. So the third C is when they get there and you choose them, do they have the capacity to do what you expect of them based on how you've seen them to date? Do they internally have the capacity to handle the load? And man, you should have seen them. It was like, I don't know. This one over here, it's like they're already burned out a little bit. This promo is to, rejuvenate them. So I don't know if they would handle the capacity that's expected of them in this new role, as well as the other person. The other person said, I'm not worried about them creating capacity. I'm worried that our organization won't create capacity for them. Like they'll handle it, but we don't have clear expectations. Our infrastructure is a little weak. So capacity is just going to get a little mixy. I was like, okay, so you got capable, competent, capacity. And then the 4th C is courage.
Woo, we made it.
This is the +1.
This is
It's
the
like,
+1.
do either one of those people have the courage in the next role to make the tough decisions that need to be made in service of this business? Do either one of them have the type of courage that is assigned to your current company's brand and values? Do either one of them have the courage to take on a massive change that could come after they're in the role? And that for them in that moment was the differentiating point. It's like, I don't see this person being courageous enough.
Wow. Isn't that funny? Isn't that amazing? Like you held their hand through the whole process. Yeah. I obviously happy to hear courage made the list. When you were talking about +1, that's not where I thought you were going, but I think we've talked about +1s in our business before as life is as simple as everyone has an expectation bar and whether things are met or unmet. So for example, excuse my French, you go into a movie that you think is going to be shitty and it's average. You're like, that was pretty good. Like it beat the expectation bar. Right. And so our definition of +1 has always been know the expectation and then beat it, +1 it. Like be aware of that. And as a leader, I think it's so much sad that the bar is that low. And that's not what we're not asking you to do, is to be lazy about this. The bar is so low that we don't have faith in people that, wow, you over delivered. You actually thought about this and went above and beyond. That's how we would define the +1, which is where I thought it was like 3 C's +1, 3 C's and the +1.
Oh,
But by the way, I've never shared this on the podcast. Do you know if I ever, I like your, by the way, let me put this out there straight out of the gate. I like your criteria better than mine. But if I ever got down to 2 finalists and they were like, they seemed even on paper, even if the 3 C's were like, well, we're still, this is the Maryland. I'm a Maryland kid that lives in California, but this is the Maryland in me showing. The last thing I would do if they're still tied, I would get 2 hard shell crabs. I'd put one in front of each of them and I'd watch them. I'd just say go. And depending on who's willing to get their hands dirty, I'm like, that's the one. I'm hiring that one. That guy, that girl or guy right there. That's the one who's coming with me.
That is great. That is great. I love that. I can see the visual too. It's like both of them are at a restaurant. Like,
Put this bib on. Put this bib on. Go.
Show me what you have.
Maybe that's grit.
good.
Maybe
That
that's
is
grit.
good.
Maybe that's a grit
Yeah.
metric.
A
All
little
right.
bit.
I got to ask you. I
Mhm.
got to ask you. So, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, and I know you've acknowledged too. There's days that you're off, right? But for the most part, like we talk about this relationship between fear and courage, and
Yeah.
you don't get to one. You just when we work with companies, we say we're corporate fear fighters. Like that's not a band, but we're fear fighters. That's what we do.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
where's the largest fear? So I'm curious, where does fear show up for you still?
Sometimes when I talk about fear, and I'll tell you about mine, but I also want you to have the context for how I view it, because everyone has a relationship with fear based on how they were socialized. So the environment you grew up in creates the your relationship with how to deal with fear. So I was raised military. I never had to travel, but my dad had already he was already finished being in the wars, and he wasn't deployed anymore. But he led with a pretty iron fist in terms of just intimidating. So my relationship with fear came through the lens of people being direct.
One last question. Siblings?
I have 2 older brothers.
Okay, so you're the youngest?
I'm
Of
the
3.
youngest
Okay.
of 3. Okay. So my relationship with fear was set up through the environmental factor of, in the pecking order, in the hierarchy, what I say is an order, and therefore you will do it, which means, pull that over. I didn't grow up questioning things because in my childhood, everything was go do it. And you never questioned it because in the military, you don't question your commanding officer. You just go do it. So I didn't know that that's what was happening then. But I had fear of not doing things when I had a direct order, because some of the things I didn't do is because I couldn't. Remember, I'm capable, like I just couldn't. But he didn't know that, and he didn't care. I didn't say he didn't love me. He didn't care. It's like, figure it out. So I have a fear relationship of failing because of that environment I grew up in. So my fear, as I've navigated my life, is I don't want to let anybody down. I don't want to fail at this endeavor that I've tried. There are a lot of people counting on me. I'm usually the first one or the only one. So I have fear of not making it. And you can fill in a list of things that fear has been associated for me, until I recognize that fear shouldn't be my driver. It's okay to own that I have that fear, but it shouldn't be the driver that makes me do certain things that are not true to myself.
You can see, though, you can't help but then run the exercise for yourself, right? So like, right, compare, beware. Here we go again. But like, what I heard was it's human nature almost to put a spotlight on that, right? So then you over-index on that little trigger, right? And I do think we're all little boys and girls trapped in these adult bodies doing the best we can, right? So that little boy, Reggie Butler, little boy Ryan Berman with my own fears, and I'm the second of 2. My older brother was branded the smart one. I was branded the good with people one, which I equated to that I must be the stupid one. So all my heavy came in, I'm just going to have to outwork people because he's the smart one. And by the way, if my parents are listening to this episode, my mother would say, "Here he goes again. That's not what I said." Right? Well, that's what I felt. That's what I heard. So it's funny. What about, so if you don't mind me asking, what's the relation? What are your brothers? Are they still here? What do they do? Do you mind me asking?
So my oldest has passed away, so he's still not here. And he was in a pretty bad accident as a teenager. He was an altar boy, so I'm Catholic. He was an altar boy. And early one morning, he was in an early morning, like 6 a.m. mass. And he was lighting the candles, with the instrument that lights the candles. And at that time, the cassock and surplice, the black and white thing that altar boys wear, it was fire retardant, not fire repellent. And so he caught on fire.
Oh my
And he
gosh.
sort of ran through the whole stop, drop, and roll didn't actually work. And if it weren't for a nurse that happened to be coming off of third shift from a hospital to go to mass before she went home, she just happened to be in church in the back, praying, and watched it happen. And she ran up to him and covered his mouth so he wouldn't inhale the flames. But he was burned, two-thirds of his body. I mean, it was horrendous. His relationship, with fear became this hardened thing about, I'm different. I'm always going to be different. And I can't be afraid if somebody's going to like it, because I can't do anything about this physical appearance. So I'm not afraid to be boisterous and loud and laugh and walk into rooms and walk into restaurants. I'm not afraid of it. I am
Wow.
scarred, but that's your problem if you can't look at me. I'm in a
Wow.
household where that happened. I'm 8 years old when that happened. So I got the military side, and then I got my brother watching him, traverse the next 9, 10, 15 years of him being totally good with being, othered because of how he looked. I'm like, oh my goodness. And it sort of set up a relationship for me that while I am not in fear of judgment from other people because of that environmental piece. He could care less how people thought of him. It's like, I can't spend, why would I spend my life worrying about it? I can't ever fix this, period. Like, I don't have a few digits of my finger are gone. Like, I can't, no. And it was really I'll use the term leadership life lesson for me. So as I grew up, and the work I do, when people judge me because of the work I do, it doesn't bother me a bit. Like I'm good.
In some ways, it sounds like it was like a liberating moment. Like I've definitely, and again, this might be the optimist in me, and I'm not sure how I would have handled that situation, right? But I call them negative blessings,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
help get me through some heavy, and now it's easy to look at the learning opportunity
Mhm.
and unlock myself, and there's freedom in that
Yeah.
for sure, right? And you don't waste any time on the silly. You just carry on and move on.
That's right. You know what, Ryan? I've also realized that a lot of people, the only reason they haven't gotten further than they are right now, and I don't mean further like success further, they're just not where they think they should be. That's the narrative they're telling themselves, because they haven't spent the time reflecting on who they want to actually be, not what they want to do, like who they want to be.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just don't spend time in that space. And some of it is because of this thing you're talking about is fear.
Yeah.
Like, I'm afraid of becoming that person.
Totally.
But they've never talked about it to themselves. They just know, I don't want to be that. I'm like, but no, that's what it takes for you to be there. And you can't be afraid of that.
But the joke is, you're afraid of success. You're not afraid of failure. You're afraid of like what happens if I'm there, right? And I got lucky, man. I that grit phase I was talking about, it came from putting my head down and just busting my tail and using the chip on the shoulder that I had. Like, I'm like, thank you, Chip, for helping me develop skills, right or wrong, right? Thank you, Chip, for helping me develop skills that got me to where I was. But it was around 40 when I got a chance to write a book, and that was, I thought I was writing the book to help others, be, well, to be, again, since you don't know me, it was about, it was about courageous ideas are the only ones that matter. And then the two ahas were, one, courageous ideas die without courageous leaders. Good luck. This is a much wider idea. And then two, the oh shit moment, right? I wrote the book because I needed the book, right? So like, no, you're like, no. Like, this is not the book I want to, I'm writing the book because I have to read my own thesis here. And that was my moment, my freedom moment where I'm like, how could I write a book about courage and then not live the premise myself? It was a very terrifying and freeing moment when I found, and it was that moment of, I'm at the intersection. Where am I going? Am I turning left and staying the same, or am I going right? And here we go, and let's see what happens. Right? If you don't mind, get us ready for this year. If we're gonna sort of, maybe it's the rule of three. Maybe I'm a rule of threes, guys. But like, as you think about what we should all be, what we could take into the new year? If there's like three, all right, level sets or mindsets or mind frames.
Mm-hmm.
Take us home here.
Yeah. So a little bit, having a plan it's more than just helpful. It is direct correlation to your well-being. So I'm not going to, this isn't the podcast to get into just the neuroscience of the chemicals that happen when you're at homeostasis and how do you reach it and all those things. But the reality is, if I don't know where I'm going, there's a level of stress. And you know what happens when there's cortisol and adrenaline and all the things are happening. Like, for you to experience well-being, you have to have a destination. So I tell everybody in this upcoming year, plural years, be a destination-based person. And that way you will not be confused nor distracted by things that come along your way because you have a destination. Now I want you to think about this, Ryan. When we leave our homes, let's say we're just going to some simple like the grocery store, we know that's where we're headed. Do we get distracted? Do we go in other directions? Do we maybe stop and do other things along the way? Yeah, but we still are going to the grocery store. And what happens in life when we don't have a destination, we never make it to the grocery store. And then we wonder why we don't have any food and things for sustenance. Like, because you never made it to the destination. You can't come back home and look at your family and go, I forgot to go to the grocery store. It's like, no, there's an expectation. So one, be a destination-based person. Second thing is the destination. I want you to have what I call them success coordinates to reach the destination. It's like, what are the coordinates? So it's the whole left-right theory, the U-turn, the on-ramp, off-ramp, like whichever version you want to use. But what are the coordinates for you to get where you want to go that's destination-based? Not just, I have a destination and you have no route, nothing. And I've been using this one for a while. It's been yielding great results. I think of a rideshare app, and the information it requires you to enter before the experience will ever happen. So when a rideshare app first popped up, the number one key data point is where you are. And so I tell people, do you know where you are? Do you actually know where you are? Like, if you don't know where you are, then you can't do the next part, which is put in the coordinates for where you want to go. Because if you don't know where you are, you don't know where you want to go, you realize that ride will never show up.
Totally.
Ever. No matter what it is. I don't care if it's a rideshare that way, or if it's a trip on a plane, or it's always destination based. You've got to have a starting point. So this year, people, what's your starting point? Where are you? Second, where are you going to go? How are you going to get there? So that destination-based thinking actually correlates to higher people experiencing higher levels of well-being. The last thing I'm going to say is that we all know that there will be changes along the way of any route. We have to make some different decisions. And I want people to sort of use the 4Gs, like for real, to go when the pivot happens, when things change that I didn't plan for on that route, what do I need to do to stay focused on my destination? Is it growth? Is it grit? Is it gratitude? Is it grace? What do you need to do to stay focused on your destination? So that's usually how this is going to sound odd, but I don't, because you ask a question. It's the only reason it sounds odd. It's not about thinking like this because it's the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Like thinking like this for life. And people who adopt the mentality that there's nothing special about January 1st in this thing where we self-assess what we did last year. We planted. It's January. Okay, it's January. Why don't you do that in February too? Like for the next, and why don't you do that in March? And let's do it more often because you have a higher sense of well-being. Ryan, did you know that I was looking at some research from the World Health Organization that 83% of our thoughts are negative? 83% of our thoughts are negative. If that's true, and I have a destination, you're an optimist, I'm an aggressive optimist. If we still have negative thoughts in our head, what do you think about people who aren't optimists, who don't understand what it's like to see a future? So I'm going, hey, there's health benefits to having a destination and being okay with changing along the way. That's how I sort of live it.
What a great way to start the year. I've always loved the trigger that's on the calendar because again, it's back to hope. It's like, where are you on that path? But not only do I like your idea of like, make this overt, be conscious about the destination, use your calendar, put it on the first of every month, right? Like operation destination, like where are you going? Yeah. I'm going to the grocery store. That's my new G. It's my the fifth G is grit, right? Gratitude, grocery store. And by the way, the grocery store is amazing. Isn't it amazing?
Oh, man.
How is this possible?
Yeah.
Who did this? We're so lazy. Oh, you guys, can you believe this? We're going to need another hour for that podcast.
I know. Reggie Butler. You, man. It's good talking to you. It's good talking to you. Keep doing the work you're doing. People need to hear this. Like, spread it out. You do know I do not have a signed copy of your book. I would like one, please.
All right. Well, we can do that chat. Performanceparadigm.com is one of many places you can find Reggie Butler. LinkedIn. You like LinkedIn? You want to send people to LinkedIn?
I have my own podcast called the Care More Podcast. You can find them any place where you normally download your podcast. So I spend a lot of time in the spaces talking about people can do better, people can be better, and people can care more.
Hey, that sounds like a plus one if I've ever heard it. Reggie Butler, you're the man. Keep doing what you're doing. And if you ever find yourself, I know Floridians and Californians, it's really hard for us to find each other in the same place.
That's right.
If you find yourself south in Southern California, let's get together and break some bread.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Courageous Podcast. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts so more people can find us. See you again next week.